Welcome back to Beyond the Campfire. Today we are talking about Mongolian deathworms. Will, what do we got today with that?
Well, it's definitely not the Alaskan bullworm, that's for sure. Yeah, this is going to be kind of a short episode, guys, because there's not a lot on the Mongolian deathworm. Um, it did inspire a couple things that we'll talk about, but I was like, really, I mean, all I can really tell you is what it is, some of the facts about it. Other than that, there's not really many stories I could find combing through the internet. So we reached out to our trusty friend ChatGPT to write another great story about us encountering these cryptids. You know what's going to be really funny
hmm
is that if this is like ChatGPT is foreshadowing our encounters.
And now we actually fight these things one day.
Exactly. Like we go out and we like we'll be like Sam and Dean Winchester. We'll go out there and we'll hunt monsters.
There you go. I now I know nothing about the Mongolian deathworm, so you're about to fill me in. But between the Mongolian deathworm and the Alaskan bullworm, it sounds like we're probably not going to need to call in Sandy Cheeks. But
No.
okay, gotcha. So
Which actually, when we talk about the Mongolian deathworm, I think I'd actually like to encounter the Alaskan bullworm rather than the Mongolian deathworm. I'm just saying, okay.
or both, we could fight both of them.
Well, we could, but what I'm saying is, if I had to choose, I would rather go up against the Alaskan bullworm, and I'd just like to leave the Alaskan,
Okay, so
Alaskan,
I'm
the
intrigued now. So this Mongolian bullworm is something to not mess with.
yes. So it is located as in the name, it's called the Mongolian deathworm. Of course, it is located in the Gobi Desert. So luckily, it's on the other side of the world, so that we ain't got to worry about it. It is actually the native name for it is actually the um, Olgoi-Khorkhoi. I'm probably butchering that really terribly, which translates to large intestine worm. Because
Oh,
early tribes, I'm going to get into the description, but early tribes said it very much did look a like the intestines of a cow. So that's why they called it the large intestine worm.
interesting. Okay, large intestine as opposed to maybe the small intestine.
Yeah.
Wild stuff. We can do science, guys.
Look at that. We cannot do geometry, but we can do algebra and a little bit of science.
There we go. All right, keep telling me about this thing. It's in Mongolia. It
Yep.
looks like a large intestine or something like that.
Yep. So I've got the full description of it, and you're probably going to sit there and go, "Holy hell, that thing is terrifying." And trust me, it is. So it's shaped like a sausage, but it's got no head and no tail. They approximate that its length is between 2 and 5 feet long. Okay, pretty big. It's very thick. It's got a thick body, right? Thick with like three C's.
Okay.
They claim that it has red or yellowish skin. So again, it kind of like I said, kind of looks like the intestines a little bit. You know. Um,
So so you said it can grow up to be about 5 feet.
yep, 5 feet long.
One more foot, and all the sorority girls will be asking that thing out.
Oh man, all the women would be. That's why Steven's still single, guys. It's because he's not 6 foot.
Oh boy, had to roast the sorority girls. I feel like I've roasted almost every kind of group, but I feel like I haven't roasted them. So there it is.
Yep. Which I got to tell you something funny because about the group chats we're in on Instagram about I don't know if you saw what was being said in there about you because you brought up sorority girls. I'll tell you in a second.
Oh boy,
Anyways, so the head is said to be a large hole with fangs.
a large hole with fangs. That's his head.
That's his head.
I don't know why, but I imagined a donut with like sharp teeth coming out of it, and that being his head. I don't know. Yeah, does it have eyes? Is that a thing?
No, it doesn't say if it has eyes. It just has a hole with a bunch of teeth.
Okay, so if it's eating something, it's just kind of like closing in.
I guess.
I don't know.
Listen, all I could think
Oh,
about is
that hand motion looked weirder than I
it did.
thought.
But when you're talking about like the donut hole with the teeth, all I could think about was the forbidden wussy. We're back, folks.
Don't watch this podcast around your children.
No, God, no.
Yeah. So.
All right. So on both ends of its bodies, it does have these spikes. And yeah, that's basically what the Mongolian deathworm looks like. And this is where it's going to get a little bit more terrifying because you're like, okay, that's nothing. I could handle that, right? I think I could take that on compared to the Alaskan bullworm. But that's where you'd be wrong.
Oh boy.
Because the Mongolian deathworm is in the name. It's said to spit acid that can literally corrode metal.
Spit acid that corrodes metal. So if that acid landed on me, I'm cooked.
You're cooked. You're dead.
Yeah, because I like to think I'm kind of strong. I go to the gym sometimes, but I'm not as strong as metal.
Yeah.
Melting metal, it'll melt me.
You ain't a steel beam.
Oh man, ironically, this isn't the first time we've talked about humans melting on this podcast. But
yeah, Steven's slowly going through his serial killer arc.
Oh gosh, all right. He was a law student. I probably should have it out. Anyway, we'll keep going along.
I think you mentioned that before because that was whenever you were trying to justify yourself. Anyways, and then it also is said that, like, okay, so if you see the Alaskan bullworm, or see, I call it Alaskan bullworm, the Mongolian deathworm, and you see it from a distance and you're like, it can't spit at me from here. It can send an electrical charge through the ground that can electrocute you.
Electricity?
Yep.
Something like the Electro from Spider. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay.
And then on top of that, you're like, okay, I think I can avoid its little electrical charges. I could, avoid its spit, and then I could walk up and I could just smack the worm. Well, guess what? If you touch it, you're dead.
Does it have like toxic skin? Or...
Yeah, it has toxic skin. You like the there's little poison dart frogs?
Oh yeah, where if you kind of like rub up on them, they
it's said that the skin could literally take an hour to kill a human or a camel.
Okay, gotcha. So
a whole camel.
Stay far away from thing as far as you can.
Yes. So
I have one more follow-up question about the acid thing again.
Yeah.
Like how far can this thing spit its acid? Like, is this like a Hawk-Tuah kind of thing, or is this more of a projectile? What is this?
I think it's more of a projectile, but it's like if it can't get you in range and you see it, it can definitely send an electrical charge to kill you. So if it can't hit you with its acid, it'll shock you.
Okay. So about how far would I need to be away from it to actually be safe? I guess that's kind of what I'm trying to get on a gauge of.
I think the best distance is just not to be near it at all. Like if you see it and it says you're done. You're done, man. You're cooked.
So if I see it, I'm already done for.
You might as well just kind of like hope it hasn't seen you yet with its eyes, if it has eyes.
Okay, gotcha.
All right.
Maybe I won't go to Mongolia. Not that I know. But now I have even more reason to not.
We're fixing to have a black book of just cryptids we're not going to go hunt.
Oh man! All right, keep going. Tell me about this thing.
So that's basically the description of the Mongolian deathworm. Okay, that's what it looks like. Basically, it. Because the problem with it is, here's the issue with the Mongolian deathworm, and this is the reason why it was like we have no stories about it, no photographs, because we always have a photograph of Bigfoot. We've seen photographs of Nessie. I'm pretty sure we have photographs of maybe even chupacabra. Maybe somebody has taken a photograph of a chupacabra at one point. The problem with the Mongolian deathworm is it goes back thousands of years that people have seen this cryptid. The problem being is that these stories were mostly passed down by mouth rather than written down. So it'd be kind of like, you'd be sitting there talking with your great grandpa and he'd be like, did I ever tell you the time that the Mongolian deathworm killed your grandma? And you're like, oh, and then you're like, then you tell your grandkids, oh, did I tell you about the time your great grandma got killed by the Mongolian deathworm? And then it kind of goes down by mouth, and then eventually some details slip, some details stay. And then the hard part was because Mongolia was mostly underneath the Soviet Union, at least during the time when people could have actually started putting this stuff on, getting towards the internet.
Right.
Around that time, the West didn't really know anything about the Mongolian deathworm because of them being under the Soviet Union, at least until the 90s. So that's why in recent years, you started seeing a lot of actual people. Like there's a National Geographic video watch where this guy actually got permission from the government to go out into the desert and look for the Mongolian deathworm.
Very fascinating. Okay.
So that's why we don't have any. I like I said, I scoured the internet. You have some people say, "Oh, I saw it." Some people say, "Oh, I didn't." It's a rarely encountered and rarely photographed cryptid. It's probably going to be one of our lesser known. Like a lot of people know about the Mongolian Deathworm, but the problem is, it's one of those cryptids that like you know what it is, but nobody's ever seen it. Nobody's ever photographed it.
Another follow-up question. How fast does this thing move?
I don't know. I didn't look that up. Actually, you know what? You know what? If you entertain people, I'll look that up and see what I can find.
Because I mean, my thought process is, it did seem like if I even saw it and it saw me, I'm potentially cooked. But I'm wondering if I looked at it and it hasn't seen me yet, is it even worth it to run? Could I presumably run fast enough to get away from this thing? Or is this thing so fast that even if I started running, either way it's just going to catch up with me eventually, and then I'm going to finish off. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my thought process with wanting to know its speed, because like, okay, it's got the projectiles, it's got the fangs, it's got all this weird crap, but if I can outrun it, maybe I have a chance.
Unfortunately, I'm looking and a lot of things are not telling you because like I said, there's not a lot of information on the cryptid.
Fair enough. That does tend to make me believe that it can move fast though, because I feel like it doesn't have many survivors.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there's nothing.
yeah, because I mean, I feel like there, if it was a slow moving thing, you'd have at least some stories of people running away from it and escaping it. But the fact that we don't have those stories makes me think, well, maybe it's because no one's escaped it. Maybe it's because
Hmm.
that it's.
Yeah, which we'll get into that a little bit. Like I'm gonna talk about that a little bit, because there's actually a man who wrote about it, and that's where we kind of learn a little bit about it in 1932. There's a guy by the name of Andrews. Um, he talked to locals, and they told him the stories of the Mongolian deathworm. About, and that's where we kind of get the description of what the deathworm looked like. Um, and then in 1932, he clarified in a book that the creature was probably entirely mythical, that it was just some made up story by the Mongolians that was just passed down. And so that's part of the, like, I really did want to cover this cryptid because it is a cool cryptid. Like, don't get me wrong, like,
Oh yeah.
a 5 foot long worm that spits acid and then can send a shockwave to kill you. It's pretty cool. Like, I hope it exists. Maybe we discover it. Um, but the reason why I was going to bring it up is because the Mongolian deathworm actually inspired a very famous movie.
Oh,
Have you ever seen the movie called Tremors?
Tremors. No, I haven't.
Tremors is a really cool movie. I've seen Tremors. Tremors is kind of one of those movies to where like the first one's really good, maybe the second one's kind of good, but they kind of like took it way over, um, and had like 6 or 7 or 8 movies come out of it. There's even a TV show, but the first one's still the best
Yeah.
because like the reason why they actually had all the different ones come out was because it kind of explained the life cycle of the trimmer. So to kind of go down the trimmers lore a little bit, because it inspired that. The trimmers are these worm-like creatures. They start out as these like little snake things, and then they turn into the giant worms, and then they turn into ass blasters, is what they call them, because they shoot fire out their ass and they fly up in the air and then dive down and attack.
Oh, that's terrifying. All right.
Yeah.
I
Um,
don't want to run into those things.
I know, right? And then after that, the next creatures come. So Tremors, which was inspired by the Mongolian deathworm, um, actually had some famous actors in it.
Okay.
Kevin Bacon, he's in Tremors.
Wow. All right.
Fred Ward,
Getting a star-studded cast so far. Yeah.
and then Reba McEntire was in it. Trying to look and see who else was on here that you probably know.
Kevin Bacon. How
Yep.
fun.
And like I said, Reba McEntire.
Yeah. I was eating bacon this morning. Sorry if Sorry if you have any Muslim listeners, but yeah, that's
Well, I'm fixing to have some bacon for lunch.
that's what I was chowing down on earlier. So
So yeah, that's the Mongolian Deathworm. That's basically everything I got for you. I'm gonna give you guys actually an encounter because I feel like this is like how every podcast has that like one little niche thing that they do that nobody else probably really thinks to do.
yeah,
ChatGPT better freaking sponsor us or something, man.
right.
Because I had ChatGPT write us an encounter of me and Steven encountering the Mongolian Deathworm.
Bring it on, brother. Let's
Bring
see.
it on. All right. So this is the encounter of William and Steven. Now, again, I try to keep my ChatGPT, like, ChatGPT kind of learns about you a little bit so that can better enhance it. I usually turn off my history when I make these kind of stories just because, like, I mostly use ChatGPT for like our podcast stuff, and I don't want it to think about this kind of stuff because it messed it up, and I had to like go back and delete a bunch of things to fix it. Anyways, so I just kind of told it. I said, "This is Will. He's a cowboy. This is Steven. He's an Indian from India, and they're going to go fight the Mongolian Deathworm." And there's a surprise twist at the end that I added
Uh-huh.
because somebody failed to do it in a recent ChatGPT story. All right. The sun hung low over the desert plains, stretching shadows across the cracked earth. Will, the grizzled cowboy with a 10-gallon hat, and his partner Stephen, an unflappable, quiet man from India who wore a turban and always carried an ornate bone-handled knife or a bone-handled dagger, squinted against the glare as they dismounted from their horses. They'd been on the trail of a legend, the Mongolian Deathworm, a creature so dangerous it was said to be capable of spitting venom, delivering deadly electric shocks, and even melting flesh with its touch. Most people figured it was just a story, but when Will heard about it from an old prospector down south, he knew he had to find it. And if there was anyone Will trusted to join him on this journey, it was Stephen, who had a knack of investigating deserts with an unerring sense of direction. After days of riding through scorched heat, they reached a desolate stretch of land where only twisted shrubs and brittle rocks decorated the barren landscape. Will, you sure this is the place? Stephen asked, wiping the dust from his forehead. Will spat to the side, eyes scanning the ground. Reckon so, partner. Old Jimmy said to follow the Eagle Rock by 3 days' ride. Here we are. If that worm's real, it's out here. Stephen, ever the skeptic, shrugged. It may be just an old tale, but even in India, there are stories of monsters that roam the sands. Perhaps we're just chasing shadows. Will flashed him a grin. Could be, but shadows don't leave trails like this. He pointed down to a large wriggling pattern in the sand, like something massive had burrowed through, leaving the ground churned up. Their eyes followed the pattern as it zigzagged across the plain. It's close, Will muttered. They followed the trail in silence, tension crackling in the air like the moments before a lightning strike. The ground beneath their feet grew hot, and a faint rumbling echoed from beneath. Suddenly, the sand in front of them erupted, and the Mongolian deathworm emerged from the ground. It was longer than a stagecoach and wider than a man's arm span, with scaly skin that glistened in the sunlight like polished armor. Its mouth opened wide, rows of needle-sharp teeth gleaming as it hissed, reeling in a acrid vapor that made their eyes water. Stephen drew his dagger, holding it steady. Will, I don't think this is a creature we can just rope up like cattle. Will was already pulling out his lasso, his face twisted into a grin that Stephen knew all too well, a grin that usually meant trouble. Well, maybe not you, but I'm about to show this critter what happens when you mess with a cowboy. Before Stephen could protest, Will swung his lasso with expert precision, looping around the worm's body just behind its head. The creature thrashed, sending sand spraying everywhere, and its venomous spit hit the ground with a hiss, melting pebbles in a smoking goo. But Will held tight, digging his heels into the earth as he pulled the rope taut. Hold still, you oversized nightcrawler, he yelled, his muscles straining against the beast's raw power. Stephen dodged to the side, shouting, Will, you're insane. Let it go. Will just whooped louder, determined etched into his face. Ain't no way it came all this way to just let it slither off. I'm taking this worm for a ride. In one fluid movement, Will planted his boots in the creature's sides and hoisted himself up, swinging a leg over its back as he would with any bronco. The Mongolian deathworm bucked and twisted, thrashing wildly in an attempt to shake him off. Stephen watched in shock and awe as Will clung tight, one hand gripping the rope, the other holding onto his hat. The worm let out a terrible screech, thrashing from side to side, but Will rode it like he'd been born to do it, letting out wild cheers as the worm churned the sand beneath it, kicking up dust storm. Yeehaw! Will hollered, his voice echoing across the desert. Ride him, cowboy! The worm bucked one last time, diving headfirst back into the sand. But Will timed his leap perfectly, landing back on solid ground as the creature burrowed away in defeat. As the dust settled, silence fell over the desert once more. Stephen walked over, shaking his head with an amused smile. You're a fool, Will, but you're one brave fool. Will dusted himself off, grinning ear to ear. And don't you forget it, partner. Now we know for sure the legend's real, and I reckon that worm won't be messing with anyone else for a while. Together they turned back to their horses, leaving behind the trail of the mythical beast and their own mark on the sands of legend. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the sound of their laughter echoed over the desert. Two friends who'd faced the impossible came out riding high.
Dude, that was an adventure for sure. It kind of reminded me of Dune. I don't know if you've seen those movies, but
I've seen the trailers.
okay, but yeah, in Dune 2, Paul Atreides is like riding these gigantic worms through the desert, and so you lassoing the Mongolian Deathworm and riding it and saying "yeehaw" and all those things. I just like this reminds me a lot of Dune. Just
I
I think,
thought it was funny when I called it a night crawler.
huh?
I said I thought it was funny when I called the thing a night crawler because you know what a night crawler is, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little type of worm. Oh, you night crawler.
They're good for fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe
I don't think you can use a Mongolian Deathworm for fishing though.
no, I don't think so either.
Yeah, so
So
you might catch well you really wouldn't catch anything because like even if a shark went after it, I think that Mongolian Deathworm skin is burning that shark's mouth off. So
oh yeah. So yeah, that's the Mongolian deathworm, everybody. There's like I said, not a lot of stories about the Mongolian deathworm. So, you know, but we got a really cool story, of me riding a Mongolian deathworm like a bull. Because if you guys don't know, I have ridden bulls before. A little bit of Will lore there for you. But yeah, Mongolian deathworm. Any thoughts on it, Steve?
yeah, just terrifying. Wouldn't want to see it. Wouldn't want to interact with it. I still have a little hope that maybe I can outrun it. Although, if that thing is fast as it was in your story, then I don't think I really have a chance against it.
Probably
But
not.
um, yeah, if any of our listeners live in Mongolia, or if you're planning to visit Mongolia anytime soon, stay safe out there because okay, you're not winning. You're not winning again.
Uh-uh.
So stay safe out.
Nope. So I guess a couple announcements because it is kind of a short episode, so I'll be kind of dragging it out. I saved some announcements for last. So I have actually I got our Patreon set up, but I have not launched it yet. So um, in order for me to launch it, I need you guys to do us a favor. I need y'all to share the podcast with everybody you know. Follow us at Beyond Campfire on Instagram and Twitter. Follow our TikTok at Beyond the Campfire. And then watch us wherever you get a podcast. And if you get those numbers up and I start looking at them, I'm like, you know what? I think we're ready to release it. We'll release it. So I'm going to tell you guys the tiers because we actually have names for the tiers. Steven, can you tell me if I click that tab, can you still see me?
Have you clicked it?
Yeah, I clicked the tab. Can you see me still?
Yeah, I see you. I don't see whatever you clicked though.
Oh, no. I just need to click it so I can read what the things are.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, but I can. Yeah, I can see you.
Okay, you can see me. Okay, great. Because I didn't know if I clicked off the StreamYard tab if it would like kick my face off. So here are our tier lists. Okay. And then I'm not going to read, I'm going to tell you a little bit about them, but I'm going to read the little quotes we got for them. Okay. So the first tier we'll have is called S'more Supporter. Okay. That's $3 a month. It basically is to say, hey, we enjoy what you're doing. Keep it up. We love to support you. Okay. And so the top of each one of these has a little quote that I got from ChatGPT when I asked it to write me out some stuff for this. And it says, every great campfire story starts with s'mores. So this is basically just, like I said, to help, as it says here, by taking this thing, you're actually helping us keep the flames alive and the stories rolling. So that's the $3 tier. It's basically, I mean, you don't get a lot. You might get like some sneak peeks, maybe some, you'll get a shout out on our social media probably. Um, that sort of thing. There's not a lot that comes with the first tier. It's just to kind of, like I said, says, hey, we love you, we support you, we're glad you're doing this, and we'll give you some other stuff along the way. Like I said, behind the scenes, a shout out, that sort of stuff. The next tier, which is actually probably the mid tier, which I think a lot of people will actually end up getting because you'll get the same perks as the $3 tier, but it's just $2 more. It's the $5 a month. It is the toasted s'more tier. And it says for the s'mores who crave a little extra magic around the fire. This tier, basically what it will do is you'll get an extra episode on Christmas, you'll get an extra episode like on Thanksgiving, on Halloween, like our Halloween special that we did last week. We normally weren't going to do an episode, like a combined episode. We were actually planning to release something on Thursday. However, some things happened. But had we actually released something on Thursday, it would have actually been part of the Toasted S'more group. So next year, after we launch the Patreon, I'm hoping to launch it maybe around March if we can get our numbers where they need to be. But you'll have the Toast S'more, which is what, like I said, where you'll kind of get all the benefits of the S'more supporter, but you also get additional episodes. Like in the summertime, you might have a new episode every month, or one additional episode every month or every week. You'll get an additional episode in the summer, like of summer stories, like cryptid stories, ghost stories, everything pertaining more to summer theme. You get like a St. Patrick's Day episode. Like I know last year we did the Banshee on St. Patrick's Day. This, we would actually have an episode dedicated to the Banshee on that day, or some sort of Irish folklore. You have a Christmas episode, Thanksgiving episode, Halloween episode, 4th of July episode, Easter episode. Like, you know what I mean? That's what basically you get with Toast S'more, is like one additional episode that is like a special. Now, the biggest tier of it all is the Campfire Keeper. This is $20 a month. And this is for those brave enough to explore the mysteries beyond the fire. So that is the tier where me and Steven, which it'll take a little bit for that tier to actually take effect. Because like I said, Steve and I got to save up some money for this one. But hopefully at some point that tier will start paying for itself. And for $20 a month, Steven and I will go on location to actual haunted houses, we'll go up to where Mothman is spotted, and we'll go look for Mothman. We will go look for the Chupacabra. We'll go to the Marshall House and investigate the Marshall House and its ghosts. We will, go to haunted locations anywhere, and we will hunt and find those cryptids and those ghosts. So that's our Patreon. I'm really excited to launch it. I really think it's going to be a great idea. It's going to be a lot of fun. But like I said, we've got to get our numbers up. So if you guys can do that before March, we probably will be starting to see some really cool stuff. Because I'd like to release the Patreon a lot sooner, because I do want to do like a Christmas special episode. Because we do have the Friday after Christmas, we do have an episode about a Christmas cryptid. But I would like to also include something maybe on a Christmas special if we can get the Patreon up by then. But hopefully sometime next year that will be launched. If it is launched in March, you guys probably, if you do want to be a Campfire Keeper and you're like, what, I love the sound of that, I'd love to do that. Those episodes will probably take about 6 months after the initial release before Steve and I can actually go out and start looking for something. Because I feel like we need to get our numbers up so people know who we are. And then that way we're not just two random guys, asking somebody, hey, can we come stay in your house for the night and look for a ghost, So yeah, that's all the announcements I have for you guys so far. We do have a new hat dropping soon for the store. Go check that out. That's the one with the knitted. We're actually going to keep the regular one, because I told you I put 2 photos out on our Instagram where you had like one printed on and one was stitched on. We're gonna have both of those on the store. If you want to choose the stitched, you can get the stitched. If you want to choose the other one, you can. But that's all I got for the announcements. Steven, you got anything?
Nope. Yeah, I think you explained it very well. So good to go, man.
All righty. Y'all have a good weekend. Don't party too hardy. But yeah, Thank y'all for watching, and y'all have a good evening.